As I toiled in the kitchen, crafting a feast for my beloved's kin, I ventured into the garage to fetch additional seats. Thereupon, I overheard her brother utter, "I still cannot fathom how thou hast wed this knave. Father speaks true. Thou must part ways with him ere thou dost bear children, lest thou be ensnared for all eternity." She did respond, already engaged in the task at hand. "Mine counsel doth declare that we may seize upon a portion of his enterprise as well." With chairs in hand, I rejoined the gathering, my countenance adorned with a most gracious smile as I resumed my role as host. 3 days hence, my WhatsApp was besieged by 47 fervent missives imploring me. A sense of unease did pervade the air surrounding Alexandra in the days leading to her family's gathering. Not of the ordinary sort. As she doth fret o'er her labors or finds herself vexed, I have once more left my boots in the corridor. This was unlike any other. She did oft glance at her device when she believed mine eyes were averted, changed her screens with great haste as I passed by her workstation, and took to another chamber for her conversations. After the passage of 7 years in companionship, one acquires an instinct for such matters, akin to discerning the true alignment of a wall merely by its appearance. Lo, I never imagined I would find myself penning such a missive. I am not one to unveil my private matters for all to see upon the vast expanse of the Internet. Yet here I find myself at the witching hour, a glass of amber spirit in hand, grappling with the incredulity of how my existence has unraveled in the span of but 3 fleeting days. Pray, allow me to unburden my soul, for thou art the fortunate witnesses to this unfolding spectacle of folly. A brief prelude. Hark! I am James, aged 33. From the very foundations of my ambition, I hath forged a construction enterprise, rising from naught after casting aside the halls of community learning. Commenced with naught but myself and a weary vehicle. Lo! 5 bands of diligent workers dost traverse the county, each engaged in their noble endeavors. Not of grand stature, yet it doth suffice to meet the needs and then some more. Mine own beloved, Alexandra, aged 32, hath been my cherished spouse for the span of 7 years. I didst lend her mine unwavering support throughout her legal studies, covering tuition, rent, and all manner of expenses, whilst I toiled to establish mine own enterprise. She hails from a family of genteel standing, one that hath never truly bestowed its favor upon the humble laborer whom their daughter hath chosen to welcome into their abode. Her father, Elijah, doth ply his trade as a financial adviser, whilst her mother, Pamela, doth navigate the realm of real estate. Her brother, Thomas, in his youthful pride, doth believe that his business degree renders him a divine boon to the world of commerce. Pray, lend me thine ear. From the very outset, it was clear that they held the belief she might ascend to greater heights. The jests regarding my modest enterprise and inquiries about my return to academia did persist unceasingly. Yet, it was believed that Alexandra stood as my steadfast champion, or so I perceived. Upon the last Saturday, we did host the customary spring repast within our abode, a tradition fervently championed by Alexandra to display our dwelling to her kin. This morn, I toiled in the garden, cleansing the deck with a mighty spray, whilst lending mine hand to the culinary arts. All must align in flawless harmony for her kin. Since the break of dawn, I had been preparing the smoker for the brisket that had been maturing in its dry embrace throughout the week. Alexandra bore a countenance more fraught than her wont, her words sharp as a dagger for trifles, yet I attributed her ire to the customary strains of our familial repast. All did gather at the hour of 4. Her progenitors, her sibling Thomas and his spouse, her younger sister Magnolia, who yet pursues her studies in the realm of higher learning. Alexandra's mother forthwith commenced her examination of the living room's furnishings, whilst her father posed inquiries sharp and direct, his tone implying an eagerness for me to confess to any shortcomings in my endeavors. By the 6th hour, we were prepared to partake in our repast. I would arrange the dining table with our finest china, the cherished gifts bestowed upon us on the occasion of our union, seldom employed, yet I came to the realization that 2 additional chairs were required from the depths of the garage. As I ventured forth through the side portal, I discerned voices wafting from yonder corner of the dwelling. Thomas and Alexandra found themselves amidst the blooming azaleas, partaking in a shared cigarette, a curious act indeed, for she had claimed to have forsaken the habit 3 years past. As I prepared to raise my voice, a whisper of my name reached mine ears. I stood transfixed, as if time itself had ceased to flow. Thomas did express his disbelief at her choice in marriage, asserting that their father's judgment was indeed correct. She must needs part ways with me ere the arrival of progeny, lest she be ensnared in a bond eternal. What Alexandra uttered next struck with the force of a heavy blow, as if a sledgehammer had descended upon my heart. She was already engaged in the endeavor, and her legal counsel proclaimed that they might seize half of my enterprise as well. I found myself rooted in place, a chill coursing through my veins, as their mirth echoed around me, mocking my ignorance of the tempest that lay ahead. They did persist in their discourse, speaking of a certain Dominic as a far more suitable match for her, lamenting how she had squandered her finest years with me whilst I engaged in the toil of construction. Hast thou ever encountered a moment when thine entire existence doth transform? 7 years of union, the innumerable nights I toiled in vigil, aiding her in her scholarly pursuits, the journeys forsaken to fund her tomes of law, the additional labors I undertook to alleviate her burdens of debt. All at once, the world appeared transformed beneath the unforgiving glare of the revelations that had just reached mine ears. Yet I raised not my voice, nor did I challenge them directly. A chill took hold within my very soul. With utmost discretion, I withdrew, procuring 2 collapsible seats from the confines of the garage, inhaling thrice with great depth, and affixing upon my visage the most disingenuous grin ever to grace my countenance. As I traversed the threshold once more, mine eyes did chance upon my reflection in the mirror of the corridor. I appeared most unremarkable, as if I were but a common figure in the tapestry of life. Within, a desolate realm, marred by the remnants of mankind's folly. The remainder of that repast was most extraordinary. I didst pour the wine, carve the brisket, and chuckle at her father's jests, whilst mine eyes beheld my wife, this unfamiliar visage across the table, comport herself as though all were as it should be. I gazed upon her visage, seeking the essence of the bride I once took to my heart. Had she ever regarded me with that veiled disdain? Or did mine eyes but now perceive it? When her mother didst praise the fair and inquired of my hidden formula, I was on the verge of losing my composure. 7 years of gatherings round the table, and now she deems I possess knowledge of value? With a meticulousness akin to a masterful playwright, I elucidated the intricate process of dry aging, even as my mind clamored in turmoil. At a certain moment, her sister Magnolia cast upon me a most peculiar glance, as if she were endeavoring to unravel some enigma. She hath ever been the sole virtuous soul amidst that kin. Pray, did she possess the knowledge? Upon the conclusion of the sweet repast, Thomas did lift his glass in a toast to kin and the transformations that lie ahead, casting a gaze upon Alexandra, adorned with a most self-satisfied smirk. With a clink of our glasses, I partook of the drink, my mind wandering to the sweet satisfaction that would arise from shattering that delicate crystal against his visage. 7 years of gatherings round the table, and now she deems I possess knowledge of value? With a meticulousness akin to a masterful playwright, I elucidated the intricate process of dry aging, even as my mind clamored in turmoil. At a certain moment, her sister Magnolia cast upon me a most peculiar glance, as if she were endeavoring to unravel some enigma. She hath ever been the sole virtuous soul amidst that kin. Pray, did she possess the knowledge? Upon the conclusion of the sweet repast, Thomas did lift his glass in a toast to kin and the transformations that lie ahead, casting a gaze upon Alexandra, adorned with a most self-satisfied smirk. With a clink of our glasses, I partook of the drink, my mind wandering to the sweet satisfaction that would arise from shattering that delicate crystal against his visage. As the clock struck 11 and they took their leave, fair Alexandra commenced her tidy work, a gentle melody escaping her lips. Humming, as though she had not just wrought ruin upon our very existence. I did assure her that I would complete the task of washing the dishes, and that she ought to take her leave and find some respite. She bestowed a gentle kiss upon my cheek, and declared me a most virtuous husband. The boldness of it nearly turned my stomach. Once she retired for the night, I took it upon myself to peruse her laptop, secured by a password, freshly bestowed upon her. Yet, I was aware that she employed a similar design for the majority of her dealings. On the 3rd attempt, I found myself within. The missives to her legal counsel commenced 3 moons past. The scheme was devised to unfold after she attained a partnership at her establishment, employing my earnings to bolster her standing, only to cast me aside once her position was firmly secured. There existed scrolls chronicling my commercial possessions, our ledgers, and even a vexing chronicle of the dissolution of our union. Lo, and there it stood, a ledger revealing her clandestine transactions, wherein she had been discreetly shifting modest sums to an alternate account for many moons, artfully skirting the thresholds that would summon attention. Witty and astute, wise in the ways of the law, I didst peruse our shared coffers of savings. $20,000 vanished into the ether. The coin I had been setting apart for the grand venture's growth. Our destiny awaits. Then I chanced upon the script, inscribed by one known as D. It seems that Dominic was not merely a more suitable choice. He was already embarking upon the trial of my substitute. The manuscript hath returned to a time 6 moons past. 6 long months. That night, slumber eluded me. Or perchance the following. On the Monday past, I did declare myself unwell, a rare occurrence in 3 years' time, and sought counsel from a solicitor of divorce whilst Alexandra attended to her duties at the office. A fellow by the name of Mike, as suggested by a companion, revealed all that was necessary, displaying the captured images I had procured. Mike did present his thoughts with utmost clarity. In our realm, she might claim a portion of my enterprise's worth, as it flourished greatly throughout our union, though she ne'er raised a hand to assist in the toil thereof, though I crafted it from naught, whilst steadfastly aiding her in her scholarly pursuits. Upon hearing the proposed sum for resolution, I felt as though the very air had fled from my lungs. All that I had crafted, all that I had relinquished for this cause, severed in twain and bestowed upon the lady who sought to catch me unawares. I recall inquiring of Mike, "What then? Shall I merely submit and endure the weight of fate?" He did commence a discourse on harmonious resolutions and the mitigation of losses, yet I had already departed. In the realm of thought, a profound transformation hath occurred within my very soul. Upon the eve's descent, fair Alexandra inquired if my spirits had lifted. Returned bearing a potage. Feigning great concern, I did partake in the jest. Spake I was but weary. Verily, I sense a malady doth approach. She did counsel me to seek the wisdom of a physician. The spectacle was most splendid. I inclined my head, expressed my gratitude for her kindness, and declared my affection for her. As the clock struck 11 and they took their leave, fair Alexandra commenced her tidy work, a gentle melody escaping her lips, humming, as though she had not just wrought ruin upon our very existence. I did assure her that I would complete the task of washing the dishes, and that she ought to take her leave and find some respite. She bestowed a gentle kiss upon my cheek, and declared me a most virtuous husband. The boldness of it nearly turned my stomach. Once she retired for the night, I took it upon myself to peruse her laptop, secured by a password, freshly bestowed upon her. Yet, I was aware that she employed a similar design for the majority of her dealings. On the third attempt, I found myself within. The missives to her legal counsel commenced 3 moons past. The scheme was devised to unfold after she attained a partnership at her establishment, employing my earnings to bolster her standing, only to cast me aside once her position was firmly secured. There existed scrolls chronicling my commercial possessions, our ledgers, and even a vexing chronicle of the dissolution of our union. Lo, and there it stood, a ledger revealing her clandestine transactions, wherein she had been discreetly shifting modest sums to an alternate account for many moons, artfully skirting the thresholds that would summon attention. Witty and astute, wise in the ways of the law, I didst peruse our shared coffers of savings. $20,000 vanished into the ether. The coin I had been setting apart for the grand venture's growth. Our destiny awaits. Then I chanced upon the script, inscribed by one known as D. It seems that Dominic was not merely a more suitable choice. He was already embarking upon the trial of my substitute. The manuscript hath returned to a time 6 moons past. 6 long months. That night, slumber eluded me. Or perchance the following. On the Monday past, I did declare myself unwell, a rare occurrence in 3 years' time, and sought counsel from a solicitor of divorce whilst Alexandra attended to her duties at the office. A fellow by the name of Mike, as suggested by a companion, revealed all that was necessary, displaying the captured images I had procured. Mike did present his thoughts with utmost clarity. In our realm, she might claim a portion of my enterprise's worth, as it flourished greatly throughout our union, though she ne'er raised a hand to assist in the toil thereof. though I crafted it from naught, whilst steadfastly aiding her in her scholarly pursuits. Upon hearing the proposed sum for resolution, I felt as though the very air had fled from my lungs. All that I had crafted, all that I had relinquished for this cause, severed in twain and bestowed upon the lady who sought to catch me unawares. I recall inquiring of Mike, "What then? Shall I merely submit and endure the weight of fate?" He did commence a discourse on harmonious resolutions and the mitigation of losses, yet I had already departed. In the realm of thought, a profound transformation hath occurred within my very soul. Upon the eve's descent, fair Alexandra inquired if my spirits had lifted. Returned bearing a potage. Feigning great concern, I did partake in the jest. Spake I was but weary. Verily, I sense a malady doth approach. She did counsel me to seek the wisdom of a physician. The spectacle was most splendid. I inclined my head, expressed my gratitude for her kindness, and declared my affection for her, and inquiring if I might retrieve her garments from the dry cleaners. The utter commonplace of it was most extraordinary. Like observing a soul traverse a perilous path of their own design, blissfully unaware of the lurking dangers beneath their feet. Upon the moment her chariot departed from the threshold, I set about my labors. The foremost matter at hand was the safeguarding of mine own enterprise. Summoned my financial steward for an urgent discourse at the café just a stone's throw from my place of toil. Verily, I would ne'er engage in such discourse via the device of communication or within the confines of mine employment, lest mine colleagues catch wind of the matter. Pray, lend me thine ear. In the pursuit of establishing a venture whilst aiding another in their scholarly endeavors, one finds oneself compelled to make sacrifices. At times, thou mayest find that not all is inscribed with utmost precision. At times, one may hasten through the toil of documentation, wearied as they are from the relentless grind of laboring for 14 hours on end. Alexandra was well aware of this truth, had verily lent a hand with our initial reckonings of taxes when our coffers were too lean to engage a proper scribe of accounts. The gathering at the coffee shop proved to be a revelation most profound. My accountant, whom I shall refer to as Frank, bore the visage of one who had not known the embrace of slumber for many a night. It appears that fair Alexandra had previously reached out to him, posing seemingly innocent inquiries regarding the methods of valuing enterprises and the documentation of ownership. She professed to assist me in readying for a possible gathering with a benefactor. Frank, in his ignorance of the unfolding events, had imparted to her but a mere semblance of knowledge, yet a disquietude stirred within him, prompting him to raise a cautionary signal. Upon revealing the truth of the matter, his visage lost all hue, as if the very essence of life had fled from him. "James, I beseech thee, lend thine ear, for I have a matter of import to reveal unto thee," he did declare, as he withdrew his tablet from its resting place. He did unveil a collection of parchments revealing the dealings of my trade from the preceding 3 years. These marked ones, they do not seem to align as they ought. It appears that Alexandra's endeavors extended beyond the mere orchestration of a separation. She hath been crafting a parchment path to render it appear as though I did mismanage the coffers of our enterprise. Minor variances in dates, peculiar transfers of sums twixt accounts at unusual hours, and invoices bearing numbers that do not align. All is within the bounds of law. She possessed a wit that surpassed such folly, yet sufficient to render matters quite chaotic within the halls of separation's tribunal. It suffices to warrant the summoning of a forensic accountant, whose fees would amount to a small fortune, yet yield naught but empty findings, prolonging the proceedings for many a month. Frank and I did labor for 3 hours, meticulously chronicling every detail, crafting transparent paths that attest to the authenticity of all dealings. We hastened the disbursement of funds to our suppliers, settled our equipment debts ahead of schedule, and meticulously recorded Alexandra's utter disengagement from the affairs of the enterprise. Whilst we toiled, a missive did arrive from Magnolia, sister to Alexandra. This was most uncommon. Though our camaraderie hath ever been cordial, we seldom engage in direct missives. She inquired whether we might convene for a cup of coffee in the near future. She did declare a desire to converse regarding a matter of great significance. On the morn of Saturday, I found myself in a state of perplexity, pondering the nature of that which had transpired. Hark! Our next destination is the bank. Upon reflection, I found myself pondering a remark made by the brother of fair Alexandra during that evening repast. A reflection on the support bestowed by her progenitors when the hour of need doth arrive. Mine intuition did whisper unto me, and oftentimes instinct in creation doth preserve thy well-being. At the establishment of coin and currency, I did engage in discourse with our sage of fiscal matters. Affirmed that which I had long surmised. 2 fortnights past, Alexandra did seek a line of credit upon the equity of our dwelling. The dwelling that doth bear my name, for I did furnish the down payment with savings accrued ere the vows were exchanged. The abode which I hath restored with mine own hands, bestowing upon it an increase of nearly 100 grand in worth. Though I remained a necessary signatory, the documents were advancing through the labyrinthine system. In but a week's time, she would have laid claim to a sum nearing $200,000 in gold, a burden I would share in the repayment thereof. The counsellor appeared ill at ease when I conveyed that I had not granted such permission. Upon presenting my identification and the sacred bond of matrimony, I was granted the privilege to annul the application. Thus did I transfer a portion of our shared fortune into mine own account. Verily, it is the precise sum I did bestow. Is that a trifling matter? Perchance. Yet, 'tis a mere fraction of what she had intended to claim. Upon my return to mine abode, I engaged in an act of which I hold no pride. Yet in times of dire need, one must act with fervor. In our abode, I have placed diminutive contrivances for the capturing of sound within the chambers of both our living quarters and our sleeping quarters. Though it abides by the law of our land, being mine own abode as well, it surely treads upon the delicate fabric of morality. I did also arrange a device of observation within our chamber of labor, positioned to gaze upon her writing table. Then I didst take the hound for a stroll through the fair neighborhood as if all were well. Saluted the goodly neighbors with a gentle wave. Upon the conclusion of the evening repast, she declared a need to attend to her labors and vanished into the chamber of toil. I tidied the kitchen, creating a clamor sufficient to suggest my industriousness, then stealthily crept to the corridor adjacent to the office door, which she had left but a crack open. Her voice reached mine, soft and tender, like a whisper shared in the quiet of the night. Not the voice of her patron. Not her discourse with kinfolk. Her dulcet tones, soft as a whisper in the night. One cannot simply summon a call at their whim. Nay, he harbors no suspicion whatsoever. Exercise thy patience, I beseech thee. Indeed, I feel thy absence as well. Each utterance served as yet another nail driven deep into the coffin of any lingering affections I might have harbored for her. The ire I had long suppressed did verily threaten to erupt forth. I yearned to burst through that portal to confront her, to bring this farce to a swift conclusion. Yet, such a course would have brought naught but ruin to all that was cherished. Thus did I take my leave. Return thou to the hearth. Activated the spout of water, feigning the act of cleansing more vessels whilst devising my subsequent stratagems. Verily, the matter at hand concerning the craft of construction is thus. In the grand tapestry of existence, the hour doth hold great significance. Cast thy concrete not ere the rain hath ceased. It shall not align as it ought. Hasten the crafting. The entire edifice doth stand upon a shaky foundation. This vengeance required a season to ripen in the shadows. On the morn of Wednesday, by mere happenstance, I did leave the papers of dissolution, freshly printed, laid bare upon my nightstand for all to behold. Not filled in. Merely the customary documents from the county's official site. Upon my return from the cleansing waters, they were somewhat stirred. She had cast her gaze upon them. Yet she uttered not a word. Nor did I. In the realm of labor, I commenced my preparations with a hushed diligence. Summoned the goodwill of those who were indebted to me, not for gold nor silver, for knowledge and enlightenment. It appears that Dominic was not merely a chance acquaintance. He was a dear companion of Thomas, the brother of fair Alexandra. They had traversed the halls of academia side by side. He hailed from a lineage of similar wealth as that of her kin, the very sort of gentleman her progenitors had ever desired for her. And hereupon the tale doth take a most intriguing turn. Dominic hath attended numerous family gatherings which I, in my toil, did forego throughout the years. Festivities of birth anniversaries. A journey upon the snowy slopes. Alas, even a grand voyage upon the seas was denied to me, for I was ensnared in the throes of completing a momentous endeavor. The endeavor that truly laid the foundation of my enterprise. By way of a shared acquaintance, I discovered that Dominic and Alexandra had engaged in a fleeting romance during their collegiate years, prior to our own meeting. The fragments of fate were aligning with purpose. This was no mere dalliance. This hath been a lengthy contest. In the midst of my inquiries, I took it upon myself to craft a meticulous ledger, chronicling each and every coin I had devoted to the noble cause of aiding Alexandra in her scholarly pursuits. Instructional fees. Volumes of wisdom. Lease. The device of learning I bestowed upon her to mark the occasion of her scholarly triumph. The course for preparation of the bar examination. The discourse is fitting. The myriad chariots summoned to convey me home from the midnight toil of study, for I wished not to see her traverse the public thoroughfares in the cloak of night. Sum most grand. $143,622. Excluding the gains I might have reaped had I chosen to invest that sum in my enterprise rather than elsewhere. On that eve, Alexandra took the bold step to embrace intimacy for the first time in many moons. Verily, I found myself on the brink of mirth at the fortuitousness of the moment. Was this also a design of hers? Shall I be entertained and appeased whilst she orchestrates my fiscal demise? I acquiesced to the course of events, acting in accordance with anticipation, experiencing naught but a sense of disconnection whilst she feigned fervor. In the quietude that followed, as she lay in slumber's embrace, I found myself ensconced in shadows, my gaze affixed upon the whirling blades above, tallying their revolutions in lieu of counting the gentle creatures of dreams. One notion did persistently revolve. For what span of time hath our union been but a facade? Did her dealings ever transcend mere transactions? Was I but a mere stepping stone upon thy path? On the morn of Thursday, I did partake in a gathering over coffee with fair Magnolia. Upon my early arrival, I didst peruse the scrolls of Reddit upon my device as I awaited the hour. The aid from the unknown souls of the digital realm did continue to pour forth. Some proposed remedies most drastic I had ne'er contemplated. Others recounted tales that rendered my own narrative but a whisper in the grand chorus of their experiences. The unity did lend a hand, in some measure. Magnolia didst arrive, her countenance betraying a palpable unease. She hath ever been the peculiar soul amidst that kin. More authentic. Not overly preoccupied with outward semblances. She did command a most intricate brew of coffee and nibbled at a muffin whilst engaging in light discourse. At last, she drew in a profound breath. What she did next didst confirm all that I had suspected. For many a moon, she had been aware of the entanglement betwixt Alexandra and Dominic, had discovered them entwined at their progenitor's lakeside abode amidst that familial gathering. Alas, I found myself absent due to a calamity wrought by water's unwelcome embrace at a place of labor. She did boldly confront Alexandra, who did protest that it was but a singular folly. Yet it was not so. Alexandra had shared her innermost thoughts with Magnolia of late. Text, intoxicated after a familial feast I had also neglected to attend, revealed unto her the entirety of the scheme. Abide with me, until achieving the esteemed rank of partner. Then elevate to Dominic with a portion of my fortunes as her gilded escape. Magnolia did impart this unto me, for she could bear it no longer. She declared that her fondness for me had endured through the ages. I fancied myself a worthy match for her sister. Could not fathom why her kinfolk ever bestowed upon me naught but an unjust opportunity. I expressed my gratitude for her candor, prudently concealing the knowledge I had long possessed of these matters. I did entreat her to guard our discourse as a secret shared solely between us. She acquiesced, her countenance brightening as if a weight had been lifted from her soul. As she took her leave, she embraced me and softly murmured her apologies. Verily, it was the first true bond of humanity I had experienced in many a day. On the eve of Thursday, I did embark upon the next act of this unfolding tale. Conceived a fictitious enterprise crisis named Alexandra, proclaiming that I required the presence of all souls for a gathering of utmost urgency on the morrow eve. A formidable patron doth threaten to withdraw their favor. A looming calamity of fiscal proportions. required her counsel and the wisdom of her kin. She paused, caught in a moment of uncertainty. She did declare her intentions. I exerted greater force. Permit my voice to falter ever so slightly. Spake I of my dread in losing all that we hath constructed. Exploited her sense of remorse. She did yield. Consent hath been granted to convene an urgent repast for kin on the eve of Friday. She declared her intent to summon her progenitors and Thomas. Most excellent. On the morn of Friday, I did apply the last embellishments to mine preparations. Prepare the dining chamber with scrolls concealed within a folder by my place. All the evidence hath been inscribed upon a tablet. Images captured, tales told, accounts kept, all that doth exist. She did procure her most cherished confection from yonder bakery, the one that doth delight her heart so dearly. In mine endeavors at the place of toil, I did ensure that all was arranged with utmost care. Engaged in an earnest discourse with my business associate, who, though taken aback, exhibited unwavering support. Since our youthful days within the hallowed halls of learning, we have shared a bond of friendship. He was well aware of the toll that Alexandra's education had exacted upon me in myriad forms. Upon mine arrival at home, Alexandra had already taken her place, arranging the table with our finest plates once more. The harmony of it did not escape my notice. Yet another gathering of kin around the table. Identical platform. A most distinct tale is set to commence. She appeared most anxious, her gaze flitting to her device with relentless frequency. Upon inquiring whether all were assuredly attending the evening repast, she offered a distracted nod. Her progenitors did declare that they would bring forth the wine. Thomas and his fair spouse would also grace the gathering with their presence. I did propose that we extend an invitation to Magnolia as well. With a countenance of astonishment, Alexandra did acquiesce, sending a missive to her sister whilst I beheld the scene unfold. The entire company shall be present. Most excellent. As I ascended the stairs to cleanse and don fresh attire, Alexandra's voice echoed behind me, inquiring of the particulars of the client's plight, that she might ready her reflections. I did assure her that all would be revealed in the course of our evening repast. Desire hath arisen to traverse this matter but a single time, with all in attendance. Amidst the cascading droplets, I practiced the words I would utter. How I would unveil the proof. The sequence of unveilings for utmost effect. It did seem most extraordinary. As if one were to prepare for a most tumultuous gathering of clients, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. In garments that fair Alexandra oft proclaimed lent me an air of utmost professionalism, I adorned myself with care. Garments of a somber hue, woven from the fabric of twilight. Azure garment adorned with a fastening of buttons. Footwear of fine leather, rather than the sturdy workman's boot. The attire for my ultimate portrayal as her devoted spouse. From below, I discerned her voice, soft and secretive, as she conversed upon the device. By virtue of the device in the parlor, I shall have the means to revisit that discourse at a later time, should the need arise. Yet, I was already aware of the person to whom she spoke. She had spoken her thoughts, and I was well aware of their essence. Grant her this fleeting moment to believe she wields the reins of fate. Bid her convey to Dominic that all unfolds as intended, in accordance with our design. Allow her to hold fast to the notion, in these fleeting moments, that she is the wisest soul amidst us. Lo, the sound of the doorbell did echo through the halls. Alexandra didst leap, hastily concluding her discourse. Her progenitors didst arrive first. Her sire, fulfilling his vow, did present a fine and costly bottle of wine. He clasped my hand with that same air of superiority, already inquiring about this matter of urgency with a barely masked delight in his tone. Next, Thomas and his fair lady did arrive. Soon came Magnolia, who found it difficult to gaze into my eyes. The company was assembled in full measure. All the players stand ready in their appointed places. As we traversed to the dining chamber, fair Alexandra did place her hand upon my arm, inquiring if I was in good stead. The earnestness in her tone rang so true that, for but a fleeting moment, I found myself questioning all that I held to be certain. Perchance I have woven an intricate tapestry of fanciful notions from mere happenstance and misinterpretations. Then did her device emit a soft vibration within her pocket. I beheld the name of Dominic gleam upon the screen ere she swiftly hushed it into silence. And all vestiges of uncertainty did vanish into the ether. Upon the grand assembly, I did take my place at the foremost of the table. The dossier of proof lies adjacent to my dish. To my right, fair Alexandra took her seat, whilst her sire occupied the space to my left. The symmetry was flawless, akin to the feast where I first unearthed her treachery. Yet now, I found myself the keeper of hidden truths. As the matron of Alexandra inquired about the choice of wine, I beheld Magnolia gazing upon me with an odd countenance. Part wonder, part trepidation. She sensed a portent in the air, yet the nature of its arrival eluded her grasp. With goblet raised, I rose to my feet, and a hush fell upon the assembly, all eyes upon me, anticipating an account of the pressing matter at hand. I bestowed a smile upon each in succession, reserving the fairest for the end, that being Alexandra. Before we embark upon the purpose of this gathering, I raised my glass and would fain propose a toast. To kinship, to steadfast allegiance, and to the ultimate revelation of truth. The bewilderment etched upon their visages was but the prologue to a grander tale. Unbeknownst to them, a tempest loomed on the horizon, and Alexandra too was shrouded in uncertainty. Last tidings. Lo, I find mine eyes transfixed upon this device, as the tally of missives doth ascend with each passing moment. 44 missives from fair Alexandra in but a span of 3 days, each more fervent and urgent than the one preceding it. Hark, I vowed to recount the events of that feast, and verily, it was a tempest of intrigue. I had but just lifted my chalice in that salute to kin, fidelity, and at last perceiving the truth with unclouded vision. The bewilderment etched upon each visage was truly a sight to behold. I settled myself with composure and partook of a draught from Elijah's fine vintage. In regard to the pressing matter I previously spoke of, fair Alexandra did clasp my hand with a gesture of encouragement. The sheer excellence of her endeavor did indeed evoke a sense of admiration for her unwavering dedication. Verily, I persisted in extracting mine tablet. Upon my journey, I have unearthed grave dilemmas that imperil the very foundation of my endeavors. Challenges arise, unbeknownst to me, in close proximity. Elijah didst lean forward, a barely contained air of smugness upon him. Monetary tribulations? Art thou beset by troubles of coin and currency? Verily, I have oft proclaimed that thy business model doth appear most unstable. Verily, I did speak of linking mine tablet to our grand television, yet the matter at hand doth not lie within my enterprise, but rather within the bonds of my matrimony. All fell hushed within the chamber. Fair Alexandra's hand didst halt upon mine own. James, she did softly utter, what dost thou engage in? Pray, lend me thine ear. When thou art to dismantle a grand edifice, thou dost not commence with the lofty roof. Thou dost first erode the very base upon which all stands. Thus did I play the recording of fair Alexandra and noble Thomas from yonder dinner past. Their voices didst fill the chamber. Thomas did declare that she must seek a dissolution of our union ere the arrival of offspring, lest she find herself ensnared for all eternity. Alexandra did respond, declaring that she was already engaged in the matter, and her legal counsel had advised that they might seize half of my enterprise as well. I beheld every visage encircling the table. Thomas did turn ashen, his countenance drained of color. Alexandra's mother didst cover her mouth. Elijah's jaw did tighten with a fierce resolve. Magnolia shut her eyes, as if she were a spectator to a calamity she had long foreseen. And there sat Alexandra, as if struck by a spell, motionless and ensnared in her own thoughts, as her meticulously crafted scheme unraveled. Then I presented images of her correspondence with Dominic, meticulously refined yet undeniably incriminating. 1/2 a year, I uttered softly. For 1/2 a year, thou hast been in his company, whilst I toil through the long hours of 60 each week. I did direct mine gaze towards her progenitors. Didst thou know she was unfaithful? Or perchance she was contemplating the dissolution of our union? Elijah sought to interject. Yet my tale remains unfinished. I didst glide to mine spreadsheet. Each farthing I did expend to see Alexandra through her studies. $143,622. Text. Thus did I declare my commitment to the days yet to come, I proclaimed. whilst crafting mine enterprise from naught. Proceed to the following tableau. Records of her clandestine financial repository and the annulled application for home equity. And thus did she contrive to express her gratitude unto me. The hush was overwhelming. Then 3 events did unfold in swift succession. Elijah rose with fervor, sending his chair tumbling behind him. This is most absurd. Fair Alexandra, we must take our leave. Fair Alexandra did seize mine arm. James, I beseech thee, grant me leave to elucidate. And Thomas, the craven knave, sought to erase missives beneath the table's shadow. I didst point at him. What of those missives thou art casting aside? I possess them already. In every instance thou didst assist her in crafting this design. Thomas stood still as a statue, then turned his gaze upon his wife, who beheld him with a growing dread in her eyes. Alexandra didst alter her approach. It was not as such, she declared, her eyes brimming with sorrow. In a state of bewilderment, I found myself steeped in discontent. Forsooth, we have drifted asunder through the passage of many a year. Parting ways, perchance, I did resound, whilst I was bestowing upon thee the means for thy learning, whilst I toiled to construct a future for our union. Though I had not intended to let my temper flare, a sudden spark ignited within me. 7 years, I did declare, softening my tone. For 7 long years, I held steadfast in my faith in our bond. And throughout this span, I was but a mere stepping stone. Her sire did interpose. Whatever troubles dost lie betwixt thee two, they are thine own to resolve. Yet, should you believe that this cunning stratagem shall cow my daughter, thou art sorely mistaken. We possess treasures beyond thy wildest dreams. I did chuckle heartily. What provisions dost thou seek? Text dost thou refer to the sum of $20,000, which she hath purloined from our shared treasury, or the loan she sought to secure against my dwelling? As Elijah waxed eloquent on the myriad of deeds they had performed for our benefit, mine eyes were drawn to Alexandra, who, with stealthy fingers, engaged in the art of correspondence beneath the table's surface. In that moment, I unleashed the ultimate revelation. Did fair Alexandra impart unto thee that Dominic hath also taken a wife? I uttered with nonchalance. Silence enveloped the chamber. Even Elijah didst pause in the midst of his utterance. Indeed, I discovered that just yestereve. His lady's name is Rachel. Most gracious in her comprehension when I revealed to her the correspondence betwixt her lord and my lady. Alexandra's visage lost all hue. Oh, what dost thou mean? Yesterday, we partook in the delightful ritual of coffee consumption. It appeared but just that she should be made aware. In that moment, Elijah succumbed to his tempestuous emotions, seized the very brink of my banquet's surface, the one I crafted with mine own hands, and turned it over. Fair, O nectar divine, dishware, all things took to the air with great abandon. Fair Alexandra did let forth a cry most piercing. Her mother didst gasp in astonishment. Thomas didst leap back in sudden fright. I found myself seated, a curious tranquillity enveloping me. Behold, the ruin of 7 years' masquerade crumbles before our very eyes. Only Magnolia didst rise to lend her hand in the task of tidying up. Our gazes intertwined amidst the chaos, and she bestowed upon me a subtle inclination of her head. Esteem, comprehension, I was unable to discern. Elijah didst point at me, his fingers trembling with fervor. Dost thou believe thy victory is secured? Thou art not. Thou dost craft with thine own hands, for the halls of learning were not meant for thy intellect. My daughter hath erred in consorting with thee, yet we shall remedy this folly. With a measured grace, I rose to my feet. With mine own hands, I may labor, Elijah. Yet, verily, I hath constructed that which is tangible. What have you wrought, save for a lineage of deceivers? With fervent zeal, he did thrust towards me. Verily, I did attempt to deliver a blow. Thomas scarcely laid hold of him, restraining him as he unleashed a torrent of menaces regarding legal counsel. Fair Alexandra did implore, James, I beseech thee, pray, let us converse in seclusion. This is not the manner in which I had envisioned. How thou didst desire to part from me. to seize a portion of all I have wrought whilst consorting with another. I didst shake mine head. There exists naught to discourse upon. I did unbar the entrance to my abode. Pray, I beseech thee, take thy leave forthwith. Thomas didst pull his father forth. At last, it was Magnolia who took her leave, the final figure to depart from the gathering. Hesitating at the threshold. Pray forgive me. She spake in hushed tones. In sooth, I have long believed thou art worthy of far greater than this. Thus, it was solely Alexandra and I amidst the ruins of our once splendid dining chamber. Whither dost thou intend to wander? She did inquire. Her voice, a mere whisper. I have secured lodgings for my stay. I did declare. Tomorrow, when thou art engaged in thy labors, I shall return to reclaim mine belongings. This scheme was all of thy design. She did softly murmur. I have gleaned wisdom from the most esteemed of minds. I did respond, seizing mine overnight satchel, prepared with care. As I didst take my leave, she did call after me. Thou shalt rue this day. My sire spoke not in jest regarding the attorneys. I made no reply. Some foundations are far too frail to be restored anew. On that eve within the inn, I found slumber more profound than I had known in many moons. The morrow found me returning whilst Alexandra toiled away at her labor. Gathered that which held significance. Raiment, implements, cherished portraits of kin, the belongings of my faithful hound. And didst leave mine key upon the counter. In sooth, I had already secured a modest dwelling in close proximity to mine own workshop. Not concealing, merely crafting a void. Summoned my esteemed colleagues and conveyed that I shall be laboring from afar, contemplating the affairs of the heart and soul. For a span of 2 days, I refrained from the clamor of social media. Unheeded missives. Engaged in the noble endeavor of establishing mine new abode. The hound adapted with great swiftness. Creatures of the earth possess an innate sense, discerning when discord brews within the confines of a dwelling. Upon the 3rd morn, I did at last restore my device to life. It did commence its buzzing forthwith. 47 missives from fair Alexandra, a tempest of wrath and entreaty entwined within each line. The initial utterances were wrought with fervent ire, expressed in letters bold and grand. How dost thou have the audacity to bring such shame upon me? Thou hast brought ruin to all that was dear. Then they didst shift. James, I beseech thee, grant me a call. We must engage in discourse, for I am aware of my folly, yet I believe we can navigate this tempest together. By the 30th missive, she was engaged in a spirited negotiation. To seek counsel, I shall embark upon the path of healing. I shall sever ties with mine own kin. Pray, grant me the pleasure of thy discourse. Missive the 45th was most straightforward. Pray forgive me. The last pair arrived at the hour of 3:14 past midnight. I did confide in Dominic all that lay upon my heart. Concerning the coinage. Concerning the intentions of separation. He doth proclaim that we ought to remain united still. And then, he did summon forth to sever the bonds that once entwined us. He hath proclaimed his intent to salvage his union with Rachel. Alas, I find myself bereft of companionship in this solitary hour. I perused them in silence, offering no reply, experiencing naught but weariness, neither contentment nor fulfillment. Not a defense, merely a void. As one completes a laborious task, a heavy heart doth settle, for the patron shall ne'er grasp the toil and artistry bestowed upon the endeavor. As I perused the scroll, another missive did appear. James, I perceive thou hast perused these tomes. Pray, do share thy desires with me. Gold, thou seekest. What of the dwelling? Verily, I shall affix mine signature to whatever thou dost desire. Despite all that hath transpired, she remained oblivious to the truth. This matter hath never been of coin. It was a tale woven with treachery. Seasons squandered. Fate hath been robbed of its promise. At long last, I have made my reply. I have dispatched the documents of dissolution to your establishment forthwith. What I desire most is for this matter to reach its swift conclusion. Her response did arrive with great swiftness. Pray, shall we convene? Pray, would you be so kind? merely to converse. Ere I could utter a word, mine device did ring forth. Good sir, Mike, my counsel. Rachel, the spouse of Dominic, had made her approach to him. Upon revealing the proof unto her, she embarked on her own inquiries, and unearthed that Dominic had orchestrated akin deceptions with other maidens. She sought to exchange insights regarding our dissolution of union. Whilst Mike did engage in discourse, mine eyes did wander about the meagre confines of my dwelling. A humble resting place upon the ground. Unpacked are the boxes. The hound gazes upon me with a steadfast and patient countenance. This fate was not the vision I had conjured for my days at the age of 34. To commence anew. Once more. Yet, at times, one must dismantle all to mend a foundation that hath been compromised. Upon my word, I did consent to rendezvous with Rachel for a cup of that warm and invigorating brew. Not in the realm of romance. Yet, forsooth, there exists a bond in the treachery we endure together. Upon concluding our discourse, I dispatched unto Alexandra a final missive. There exists naught to discourse upon. The union hath come to an end. Pray, let all forthcoming discourse be channeled through our legal representatives. Thus did I sever the ties of communication, rendering her number inaccessible to mine ear. On that fair afternoon, I did embark upon a journey into the wild with my loyal hound by my side. Mine device did vibrate with a missive from Magnolia. It hath come to mine ears that thou hast departed from thine abode. Fair Alexandra doth reside with our progenitors. Father doth tread upon a path of ire. Yet, at last, mother doth inquire into the true nature of events that transpired. Perchance the visage of his flawless daughter doth begin to fissure. I did respond. I appreciate thy informing me. I trust thou art faring well amidst these tumultuous times. Her retort. To be or not to be, that is the question. Far superior to mere adequacy, indeed. At last, I have declared my intent to forsake the path they laid before me, in favor of the true calling that stirs my very soul. Perchance thy bravery hath spread like wildfire. As the golden orb dipped beneath the horizon, I beheld my faithful hound wander with curious delight. With joyous abandon, the tail doth wag, untroubled by the world around. 7 years have swiftly passed. Endless toil and labor. A destiny envisioned and then undone. Yet also liberty. Verity. A fleeting opportunity to reconstruct anew. Something genuine. Mine device did emit a gentle vibration. Rachel doth confirm our gathering for coffee. With a connection to a fellowship for those navigating the tumultuous seas of separation marked by fiscal treachery. It seems that this occurrence is far more prevalent than I had previously perceived. I tucked my device away and summoned the hound. Lo, the hour hath come to return, to prepare the evening repast, perchance to unburden mine belongings. Modest strides. Each day unfolds as a new chapter in the grand tale of existence. As with any noble endeavor, the groundwork must be laid before the edifice can rise. And this time, I shall ensure it is most assuredly steadfast.